Did I make an $800 mistake by buying a Mac Mini? I don't know. Let's find out. Well, hello everyone and welcome. So, I recently purchased a Mac Mini for all of our photo and video editing needs in this studio. So I did make a video several weeks ago, if not several months ago, about Apple's new Mac Mini, the 2018 Mac Mini, saying I think it's Apple's best desktop yet. And I decided I needed to put my money where my mouth was and actually buy it and see if I was happy with it. So this is the $800 baseline Mac Mini. And for 800 bucks, what do you get? Well, inside you get an i3 quad-core chip clocked at 3.6 gigahertz. We have only integrated graphics, Intel's 630. We have 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is upgradable, and a very fast SSD, 128 gigabytes, but it's not upgradable. So because of that storage limitation, we already reach our first issue. So I do have all of our applications, Final Cut, any Adobe products, whatever, all on the integrated SSD. But in terms of footage, photos, etc., they are all on a USB-C lacy rugged drive that is always plugged into this computer, and honestly, that's been completely fine. The drive is relatively fast, not as fast as the SSD, but it's fast enough for all of our purposes, and it's not being a bottleneck with what we're doing at this point. Anyway, looking at the physical device on the back, we do have Ethernet. Moving along, we have 4 Thunderbolt 3/USB-C connections, HDMI, 2 standard USBs, and a headphone jack, because Apple hasn't removed that from the Mac Mini yet. Keyword yes. Anyway, ports on this machine are fine. I wish there was an SD card reader, but that's just my personal preference. Anyway though, that is the extent of the Mac Mini. And in terms of how we use it, yeah, sure, it's our daily computer. It's my editor's daily computer. She's editing in Final Cut Pro. She's doing photo editing in Photoshop and Lightroom. And at the end of the day, everything is going well. But let's break it down. First, photo editing, specifically Lightroom and Photoshop. Lightroom and Photoshop usually perform fine on this machine. Sometimes rendering out is a little sluggish. Photoshop occasionally will freeze up here and there, but we've kind of figured out that that really is a RAM limitation. 8 gigabytes of RAM on this computer is really not enough. So I think when we upgrade it to 16 gigabytes, we will pretty much omit all of that freezing problems within Lightroom/Photoshop. All right, so now talking about video editing. Now keep in mind, we use Final Cut Pro X. If you're editing simple videos HD, you're gonna be absolutely fine, even with the baseline model of the Mac Mini. Even in 4K, you can easily get away with video editing. However, whether it's 4K or HD video editing, you're gonna run into some limitations when you start adding effects, color grading, green screen keying out, text layers, so on and so forth. By the time you keep piling up effects and titles and graphics, etc., the machine is definitely going to start slowing down a little bit. And that's gonna be a combination of 2 things, your RAM and then of course the GPU. There's gonna be times we're gonna have to let background rendering do its thing until you can continue editing. And we've noticed that a little bit. It hasn't been too big of an issue, but we definitely have noticed that. Now, what is a little bit more of a bigger deal though is multicam video editing. Whether you're in HD or 4K, when we have done multicam editing, which is taking several camera angles, mashing them together so we can view them all at once, there are times that the computer is gonna stutter a little bit, freeze up a little bit. And again, we're looking at a combination of the problem that we don't have enough RAM and that we don't have a proper GPU. Now what fixes this though relatively easily is proxy editing. Turn all your clips into proxy and it performs phenomenally then. Absolutely no problem. But if we had a discrete GPU, then we would have less issues 100%. Now, please keep in mind, I'm not saying that your editing experience is awful with the Mac Mini, because we do all of our editing, photo and video, with the Mac Mini, and it's performing like a champ. Again, there's just occasional, stuttering, glitching out at times, but I think all those problems are fixable. And I think we're gonna start off with actually the RAM. I've been keeping an eye on the RAM usage on this computer, and I think the majority of my freezing problems are solely because 8 GB of RAM is just not enough, especially for 4K editing. HD, you're gonna be able to get away with a lot more, but 4K editing, you're definitely gonna want 16 GB of RAM. In terms of the graphics card though, really, we're probably gonna get an eGPU at some point, but it's really not up there on the list of necessities. But guys, that is my experience with the Mac Mini. Overall, I am extremely happy with this machine. I do wish I bought it with 16 GB of RAM, but I know I can upgrade it, so I will be doing that very, very soon. But guys, any questions, comments, concerns about the Mac Mini? This was really just an opinion-based video, sharing my experiences of how I've been using this and whatnot. But if you want to see anything specific with the Mac Mini, let me know in the comments below. Anyway guys, I'm Eric, and I'll catch you in the next one.